I was locking the side door of the church when I heard someone whisper my name. I turned. No one was there, but every candle on the altar had lit itself. Little ravens, welcome back to Dread Horror Channel. Tonight, we enter holy ground after dark, where faith meets the unknown, and even angels fear to linger. These are 4 true stories from people who worked inside churches at night and learned that some prayers echo back from something else. I used to work night security at St. Helena's Church in Ohio, a small stone chapel built back in the 1800s. It was one of those places that looked peaceful during the day, but at night, it felt like the air got heavier. Maybe it was the history, or maybe just my imagination, but I swear, it felt alive. My job was simple: make rounds, check doors, lock up after late services. The church was empty most nights, except for Father Donnelly, who'd sometimes fall asleep in his office after working too late. One night, around 2:30 a.m., I was doing my usual patrol when I noticed something strange. One of the candles near the altar was still burning. That shouldn't have been possible. I always snuffed them out before leaving the sanctuary. So I walked up, leaned over, and blew it out. The flame went dark. But as I turned away, I heard it, the faint sound of breathing. Not mine. Slow, steady, and close. I spun around, shining my flashlight over the pews. Nothing. Just the empty rows, shadows stretching long across the stone floor. I stood there for a second, trying to convince myself I was imagining things. And then the candle flickered back to life. I froze. I hadn't touched it. No draft, no trick of the air. The wick was glowing again. A small flame dancing in the dark. Okay, I muttered. Old church, old wiring, maybe static or heat or whatever. I blew it out again, and again it came back. This time, I didn't move. I just stared as the flame grew, brighter and brighter, until it was almost white. That's when I noticed something inside the glass holder. Wax dripping in slow, deliberate trails that formed the shape of a handprint. The air felt colder suddenly, and my breath started to show. Then I heard it again. That breathing, only now it was coming from right behind the altar. I took one cautious step forward, flashlight trembling in my hand. Father Donnelly, I called. No answer. I walked around the pulpit, and that's when my radio crackled. Security office to hall. Are you still in the chapel? I pressed the mic. Yeah, I'm here. Why? There was a long pause before the voice came back. Someone just walked past the cameras. Looked like you. But you're on my screen right now. I felt a chill run down my spine. I turned, and I swear on everything holy, someone was standing in the aisle. They were dressed in black, head lowered, but their hands were clasped like they were praying. Sir? I called. The church is closed. They didn't move. The candle's flame flared again, casting enough light for me to see their face. Pale, almost gray, and their eyes, they weren't open. Just black sockets. I stumbled backward, dropping my flashlight. When I picked it up again, the figure was gone. The candle went out on its own. I ran to the security office, heart pounding, and pulled up the camera feed. There I was, walking toward the altar. But standing behind me the whole time was that same figure, hands folded, unmoving. And when the candle relit itself on the footage, its flame spelled one word on the wall in reflected light. Stay. I quit the next morning. They said it was grief playing tricks, that Father Donnelly had died 2 nights before of a heart attack in that very chapel. But no one ever explained the footage. Or why, when they tried to delete it, the file was labeled candle_01_never out. I know it sounds unbelievable, but it's true. Now, after this episode, I'm afraid to look at the night vision camera recordings. I don't want to see that again. Well, that was my story. Hugs to everyone. Wow, we started well. You held on for too long. I would leave as soon as the candle lit for the second time. What would you do, little ravens? Leave your comments, and let's move on to the next one. I used to work as a night janitor for a Catholic school in Maryland, the kind attached to an old church. The classrooms weren't too bad at night, but the chapel and choir room, they always felt wrong. I can't explain it any other way. The air there felt heavier, like it was soaked in whispers. I didn't believe in ghosts or anything like that, but this one night changed that completely. It was a Thursday, a little after 1 a.m. Everyone was long gone, and I was finishing up in the choir room, just sweeping the floor, earbuds in, music on low. Then, out of nowhere, the sound cut out. My phone battery was fine, but the music just stopped, and in the silence, I heard someone humming. At first, I thought maybe one of the teachers had come back for something. The tune was soft, almost beautiful, the kind of melody you'd hear during a funeral. But the thing that chilled me was, the sound wasn't coming from the room. It was coming from inside the walls. I put down the broom and just listened. The humming got clearer, and then it turned into singing. A woman's voice. High, delicate, like someone standing right behind you, whispering a prayer. I called out, "Hello? Is someone here?" The voice stopped instantly. And then every chair in the room shifted about an inch, scraping against the floor all at once. The sound made my skin crawl. I told myself I was imagining it, that maybe it was vibration from the pipes or something. So I packed up and headed for the door, but the knob wouldn't turn. It wasn't locked. It just wouldn't move. Then the piano in the corner started playing. I froze. It wasn't random. It was a slow, deliberate chord. D minor. Then again. And again. Like someone was testing the keys. I walked over, my whole body trembling, and looked at the piano. The lid was closed. Dust on the keys, like it hadn't been used in years. But I could see the keys moving beneath the lid, pressed down by invisible hands. Then, as if mocking me, the same voice started singing again. Only this time, it was clear as day. She was singing Ave Maria, soft, perfect Latin pronunciation, and the sound came from right behind the piano. I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't move. The song built up, louder and louder, until it hit the final note, and every fluorescent light in the ceiling exploded, one after another. Glass rained down like snow. I ducked under a desk, shaking, covering my head. Then silence. Absolute, suffocating silence. When I finally stood up, the piano lid was open, and written across the inside, carved into the wood, were words burned deep. Sing with me. I didn't even bother clocking out. I just left everything and ran. The next day, the music teacher asked if I'd been in the room late because someone had left the piano bench pulled out and a candle lit beside it. But there were no candles in that room. There never had been. A week later, the principal found an old yearbook photo from 1962 hanging behind a filing cabinet, a girls' choir. Every student smiling except one. A young woman with dark eyes, sitting at the piano, face blurred as if the photo had melted over time. Her name was Anna Reeves. She died during rehearsal after collapsing mid-song. Her last performance? Ave Maria. Now I only work during the day and in places with a lot of movement. No more seemingly quiet places. I hope you never go through this. It's scary, and the fear paralyzes you. I wanted to run, but my body wouldn't obey. It's terrifying. I hope you enjoyed it. Bye. Well, little ravens, that story was chilling. I keep imagining the scene from each story, and some really scare me. You're there doing your job, and boom, out of nowhere, the piano starts playing. I would have run out the other side immediately without looking back. The next day, I would have called the company and quit, but I would never go back there. I worked as a security guard at St. Bartholomew's Church in Illinois. It's one of those old cathedrals that looks like it belongs in Europe. Towering arches, stone walls, and narrow stained glass windows that barely let in light. Most nights were quiet, peaceful even. But the basement? The basement was something else entirely. It was built back in the 1800s. A crypt originally, later converted into storage, and finally, a private chapel for clergy. At least, that's what the head priest told me. He warned me not to go down there after midnight, and I thought he was just trying to mess with the new guy. Until the night I did. It was a Friday shift, dead quiet. I was watching the monitors when one of the basement cameras flickered on, movement detected. That was odd because nobody ever went down there except the priest, and he'd left hours earlier. At first, it looked like a trick of the light, just shadows. But then I saw a figure. A man standing perfectly still, wearing what looked like an old cassock. I grabbed my flashlight and went to check it out. The air got colder the closer I got to the basement door, heavy, like breathing through ice. When I opened it, I felt a rush of air pull me down, almost like the place exhaled. The stairs creaked all the way down. Every sound echoed forever. When I reached the bottom, the lights were dim, candles lit all along the walls. Someone had been down there recently. I called out, "Father, you down here?" No answer. Just that low hum you only hear in churches, air vibrating, like a voice hiding in the silence. Then I heard footsteps, not above me, not behind me, inside the chapel. I followed the sound, flashlight shaking in my hand. When I turned the corner, I froze. There were pews lined up, maybe 6 or 7, facing a stone altar. And on that altar was a shape covered by a white cloth, like someone laying in rest. The cloth moved slightly, as if someone underneath it breathed. My throat went dry. "Sir," I managed. "Are you okay?" No response. But I swear, I heard whispering. Dozens of voices, all overlapping in a low chant. The words didn't sound like English, Latin maybe, or something older. I stepped closer, and my flashlight began to flicker. For a split second, I thought I saw movement under the cloth. And then, hands pressed up from underneath, pale, trembling, reaching for the ceiling. I stumbled backward, hitting one of the pews, and the whole thing creaked loud enough to break the silence. The whispering stopped, and then the candles blew out. All of them. In that darkness, I heard footsteps again, this time rushing toward me. I turned and ran, sprinting up the stairs 2 at a time. Behind me, the basement door slammed shut on its own, shaking the entire hallway. I didn't stop until I was back at the monitors. Heart pounding, hands shaking. When I looked at the feed again, the candles were back on, but the altar was empty. The cloth was gone. I left that night without clocking out. The next morning, the priest found me outside the building, still in uniform, sitting in my car. He looked at me with this knowing expression, not angry, just sad. And he said, "You went downstairs, didn't you?" I didn't answer. He sighed, crossed himself and said, "We don't use that chapel anymore for a reason." I asked him why. He said, "Because those who were buried, they were never truly moved." He handed me a small silver crucifix and told me to keep it. For protection, he said. I quit the next day, but sometimes, late at night, I still hear chanting in my head. And the worst part is that after that, I can't even get close to a church anymore. When I see one, I cross the street or turn around. I know it's strange, but I prefer to pray at home. Well, Morrigan, that's the story. Hugs. They say faith protects us. But sometimes, faith is precisely what unites the darkness here. Perhaps the basement wasn't haunted by the dead. Perhaps it was haunted by belief itself. And belief never dies. If you've ever felt watched while in an empty church, maybe it wasn't your imagination. But don't stop going to church, okay? And that was tonight's special. 4 true church night shift horror stories. If you made it this far, then maybe faith isn't the only thing keeping you awake tonight. Tell me, what would you do if the church bells rang, but no one was there to pull the rope? Don't forget, if you enjoyed this episode, leave a like and share your favorite story in the comments. It helps the channel reach more people who can't sleep. And remember, every Tuesday and Friday, we meet here again for more true stories that shouldn't be real, but are. On the final screen, you can choose 3 true security guards horror stories, or, if you think you can handle it, 4 true haunted asylum stories. Thanks for watching.